Hello, and welcome to Tips to Improve Your Photos Photography for Your Smartphone with the Gannon SBDC. My name is Nadia McKay. I am a business consultant here at the Gannon SBDC, and I'm going to talk with you guys today about how you can use your phone to take high quality photos for your business. I added this in here because I thought it was very interesting. Movies shot on iPhone. So there are some movies that were shot entirely on iPhone, and they were successful movies too. So I'm not sure if anyone knows of these or have heard of them. I know I didn't before I did some research on this, but movies such as Tangerine and Unsane were all shot on a cell phone. So if movies can be shot on a cell phone, you can definitely take some photos on your cell phone to use for your small business, photos or video, right? Sometimes it can be difficult right off the bat if you don't know how to use some skills to take photos on a cell phone, but hopefully today I can teach you a little bit something on that, and we can get you moving forward in your photography journey so you can take photos of your products or whatever it may be to help enhance your small business. So I just wanted to add in here some photography facts for smartphones that I thought were really interesting. So the first one I have here is smartphones have become the dominant type of camera owned with 6.6 billion users worldwide. I thought that was crazy. 85% of all photos are taken on smartphones now. 91% of people take photos on their smartphone versus a digital camera or tablet. And there is expected to be growth in this. 94% is expected in 2026. And that doesn't surprise me. And I feel like it shouldn't surprise you either because we all have our phones in our hands at all time, right? Or like in our back pocket or our purse or next to us. I feel like if I leave my house without my smartphone just because it has so much on it, right? It can do almost anything. I can look anything up on it, right? Take photos on it, take video on it, whatever it may be. I get anxiety when I leave my house with it, right? And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. So I'm not surprised that 94% is expected in 2026 to be preferred over a digital camera. This is interesting too. The digital camera industry has dropped sales by 87% since 2010 due to the smartphone use, right? And that's expected based on the statistics we just learned, right? So 93% of all photos in 2023 will likely be taken with smartphones. So cell phone cameras are definitely less developed and they do produce less of a quality in images and videos than a professional camera would or a video camera would. But it's definitely, they have developed quite a bit since they first came out, camera phones. I think almost all phones have cameras on them now. And sometimes when I take a photo on my iPhone, I feel like it looks better than if I were to take a photo on my camera. So it's definitely a tip and a tool that you can use to better your online marketing, digital marketing, website, social media, whatever it may be, your marketing there. It's definitely a tool that you can use going forward, hopefully, after you watch this seminar/webinar, whatever this may be or whatever you want to call it, you learn a little bit something there. That being said, let's go on to some techniques. Hopefully I can teach you here today. So how to take your photos to the next level. Here are some things that I wanted to point out. We're going to go through as we go through the presentation in much more detail. So the first thing I have here is one of my biggest stressors when I'm taking a photo on my phone, or if I see a photo that someone else took, I always look to see if things are parallel. So say if someone takes a photo of the sunset and the horizon is not parallel, it just gives me feel like I have ants in my shirt or something like that. I feel itchy, like it just makes me feel weird, but that's because I am a photography enthusiast maybe. But You want to make sure you're keeping things parallel, like the horizon, if there's a table or something, a wall, a corner of a room. You can look at anything just to make sure things are kept in perspective and kept parallel, right? It's a very important thing, at least for me. Good tip, at least. You want to avoid blurriness, of course. You can do that. I'm gonna show you a little bit about that and how to avoid that. But you can just usually do that by tapping on your phone, tapping on your subject or your product that you're trying to take photos of. Keep perspective in mind. This is important. What I mean by this is either keeping your subject or product directly in the middle of the screen or off to the side of the screen. I'll show you some examples there. Improve your skills, of course, that's what we're trying to do here. Keep still, that is one of the tips that I have here. And that could be self-explanatory, right? So if you're holding your phone in your hand, you want to make sure you're keeping still so that your photo doesn't become blurry or just doesn't come out the way you want it to. Editing, this is a really fun thing that I love to talk about. It's one of my favorite things to do. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to show you kind of how to do it. Prioritize lighting, that's very important. If you take a picture that is not of good lighting, it could make your product or your subject look entirely different than it even is, and we don't want that, right? Orientation of your shooting. What I mean by that is either horizontal or vertical, and what's the best way to do it for your photo, and then what's the best way to use that photo somewhere else, like on social media or your website. Determine relevance. This is important. So for instance, if you're taking a photo and you're putting it out as a marketing purpose, so like either on social media or your website or email marketing, you want to make sure whatever that photo is relevant to your business. It's very important. Getting additional equipment. This is kind of a last resort, kind of like housekeeping thing that I have at the end of here. Once you improve your skills here and you think you're ready for some new equipment or just some supplemental equipment too, that's one of the things that we're going to go over there. Might be something you want to look into once you master this a little bit more. And one of the last things I wanted to talk about today was export correctly. So putting your photos in a drive or something like that just to keep them there and you know where they are, easy to access. And also, we'll go a little bit more into this, but this will help with the quality of your photos as well. So the first thing that we're going to go over is keeping things parallel. Here I have some examples of what I mean by that. So if you look on those photos over to the right, the black and white ones, is a photo that I took where it's parallel, right? So I chose, what I did here is I looked at the piano, and if you can see, the bottom of the photo is parallel to the bottom of the piano. And if you look to your right, I have a needs improvement section here. You can see that the piano is not parallel and it just looks, a little off-putting. It doesn't look as good as the left side, right? And then down below, I just have another photo I took. Oh, by the way, all of these photos on here were taken by me just for the sake of this presentation, and wanted to make sure everything I was able to use had rights to things there. So all these photos were taken by me and recordings and everything like that. So, and they were all taken on iPhone as well. That's another thing I want to add. I have an iPhone, so everything is on iPhone, but a lot of these tips and tricks can be used on Android and any other cell phone provider as well. So some of the things are just for iPhone, or how I'm going to tell you how to get to things, like say in your settings and things like that. Those will be for iPhone. I'm not sure how to do them on the other things, but I'm sure there is a way to do them. So that might just be a simple Google search. But most of this, everyone can use all of the tips and tricks. So like I was saying, the bottom photo, you can see This is an example of a horizon, like I was saying earlier. You can see that the photo off to the right is not parallel to the horizon, and the one to the left is. And personally, I think the one off to the left looks better than the one off to the right. So there is that there. The next thing I have here is avoid blurriness. I have another example here. So off to your left. This is a photo I think looks good. Everything's focused, and then off to the right, the photo is not focused. And this is also a very good example of the lighting. As you can see over to the right, this photo is, the lighting doesn't look good. It's focused on the tree in the background. And for this photo I was taking, the purpose of this photo was to take a picture of the plant. The plant was my subject. So you can see this is another example of perspective. It's directly in the middle of the photo. It looks good. It's focused on what it's supposed to be focused on. And then over to the right, this one, the lighting isn't good. It's not focused. It's focused on something in the background, which I'm not even taking a picture of. So that's an example of a photo that could use some improvement there. So how you can do this is, it's really cool because on your phone you can just tap on your subject and it should autofocus there. Sometimes on cameras it can be super complicated. Obviously they're going to take a little bit better of a photo, but sometimes when I'm using my camera it takes me like an hour to even coordinate everything so that I can get the right focus, and it's kind of annoying. So I like that the phones, you can just click on it and it will take a good focused photo. Another thing to keep in mind is to make sure that your lens is always cleaned off. So I always check that before I take a photo because, we're taking our phones everywhere. I'm not sure if you were eating lunch or something, maybe there's a crumb left on it, and that can cause the photo to be less focused. Here, I'm going to talk a little bit about keeping perspective in mind. Over to the left, I have two different photos that I think are good and kind of go along with what I'm saying here. And then off to the right, the photo is one, the horizon isn't parallel, right? And also the subject, which here, this is my sister actually, in the Bahamas on the beach. I wish we were all there, right? I wish I was back there. But over to the right, her knee is cut off, right? Their perspective looks weird. It just doesn't look as good as some of these photos over to the left, right? So a good thing that I like to tell people is to keep your subject either right in the middle of the photo or a little bit off to the side and have some space on the outside of the photo. Improving your skills. Here are some, more tips and tricks that you can use. So, lower perspective and levels. Try flipping your phone. I'm going to show you a little bit about that and how to do that. I have a screen recording of that, and everyone can use that, whether you're on iPhone or not. Doing a different lens size rather than one. I'll show you what that means too. I'm going to show you what all of these mean going forward because they can be a little bit confusing right off the bat when I'm just talking about them, right? So the 0.5 lens is going to make things look longer, taller, wider, and this might be something that you might want to use depending on your situation or your product or your subject or whatever you're doing. Making sure everything's focused, very important. Panoramics are a really good tool depending on your situation. Portrait mode, I'm not sure if Androids or the other camera phones use this or have this, but I know iPhone does. Adjust exposure before you're taking the photo. That's something that I learned, I want to say a couple years ago, but I love it. It's such a great tool rather than editing after the photo is taken. Use the grid feature. I'll show you how to do that. Cinematic video feature. That's also a good feature to use. I'm not sure. I know that's on iPhone. I'm not sure, again, if that's on the other phones. Never zoom in. This is one of the biggest things. If you zoom in, it might look a little bit more pixelated. Just always move closer to your subject. That's the best bet you can do. First off, we're going to talk about keeping a lower perspective. So the video starts with your phone right side up. I'm not sure if I can show you this here. So right side up, and then flip your camera like this. So what this does is it allows your camera to be closer, say, to the ground if you're trying to take a photo of this if you're trying to take a photo of something lower, right? So this here photo on the left is a photo I took and I wanted to see a reflection. So if I were to take the photo like this, there wouldn't be as good as a mirror effect there. But since I flipped it, my camera was closer to the water, so it looks a lot better than it would if I were to use my phone like this. And here's an example of what I mean of the plant. Again, you're going to see this plant a lot only because I took some of these photos in my office. So here I have my phone. I had my phone flipped right side up. And then as you can see at the top, there is the recording. So that's how you can see what I mean. I had my phone right side up and then I flipped it like this. And sometimes it can be a better way to take photos because you might want something to be closer up or a different perspective. And this is a good example of that there. The next thing is the 0.5 times lens. I'm going to show you what I mean by this as well. So utilize this different sized lenses to get the perfect shot you might want. So you can either pinch the screen. This is on iPhone. I'm not sure if you can do this on other phones. Pinch the screen with your index finger and your thumb, or whatever fingers you want to use, but those are the easiest ones to make this work. So this will make your image look wider, longer, more space around it. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So here I am, you can either pinch the screen or you can tap the 0.5. And as you can see, this makes the plants look longer and there's more surrounding this. But sometimes you want to be careful. You want to be careful because this can sometimes warp your product or your image or your subject. Watch, I'll show you again. Pay attention to the trophy over there on the left. When I zoom out, it kind of warps it, if you can see that. So you're going to want to be careful, but sometimes this is a good tool if you're trying to take, say for instance, if you're trying to take a photo of somebody, if you're modeling a shirt again. You want their legs to look longer, or you want more space on the outside, or if you're just taking more creative photo, that's a really good tool to use there. The next topic is focus. We don't want to see blurry photos, right? These can be off-putting. Here's another example I already showed you here with this plant here. Off to the right, this one looks great. This one over here, not so great, right? As you can see, it's focused on this over here. So if you were to just tap right on your subject, it will look like this. Here's an example of that. Just added in all these examples because I thought it would be more helpful for you since I can't be there, in person. So as you can see, I'm just tapping different areas and it's focusing on those things. So if I want to focus on the plant, I can click on the plant. If I wanted to focus on the background, I can focus on the background. Next is the panoramic. This is just one of the elements I wanted to show you, something that you might be interested in doing depending on what the situation is. So this is really great for landscape images. And you can use these, I think the best way, at least on my opinion, one of a great ways you could use a photo like this is on your website for like background photos, your home page or whatnot. So how you do this on an iPhone is you go to your camera app and you go to the panoramic mode there. Keep still. I was kind of shaky in this photo, but I was just kind of trying to do it quickly. So I wasn't doing that great. But as you can see, you just hit play on your camera and then slowly move. This is where your parallel skills will come in handy. You want to make sure you are keeping parallel, find something parallel. For instance, when I took this photo down here, I was looking at the ground and making sure that was parallel to the line. So this is a good tool. I'll show you again as I talk through it. As you can see, this line, you can match this line up with something here. So what I was trying to do is match it up with this bottom line here. and it didn't do too bad, but you want to try and not do what I did and be super shaky, but that's really cool. It produces pretty good photos there. Portrait mode. This is obviously an example of an iPhone. I'm not sure if the other phones have this, but this can be really great for headshots. You can use this feature to get professional looking headshots of yourself, your team, or your staff. That might be a good. This might be a good tool for that. So this is really cool on the iPhone. It has several different ways you can use this portrait mode. As you can see, it's changing and it's taking different photos. I think in this screen recording, I'll show you what the photos look like at the end. And again, you want to make sure you're keeping still with these. As you can see, it takes a little bit of time to take. So these are the different examples of how those portrait modes took. Pretty cool. I like the black and white ones. That's adjust exposure before you take the photo. This is something I'm really glad that I learned for taking photos on your phone. So adjusting the exposure before you take the photo can improve the quality of your image, actually. It eliminates some of the time you might need to take at the end for editing your shot as well. Here's an example. So for this, you just go on your camera app and you will take your finger and hold down and slowly drag your finger down on your screen and then refocus and then do it again. As you can see, you can go up and it'll make things brighter. If you go down, it'll make things darker. So obviously I'm being a little extreme in this, but you can use this, say you're outside and it's really, really bright and you want it to be a little bit darker. You can use this tool and then it'll eliminate a little bit of time of editing at the end. How to use your grid. This will help you with keeping things parallel. Very important. Horizons, object in your shot, making sure everything looks all parallel and great. So here's an example of how to use your grid, at least on the iPhone. I'm sure the other phones have this, but this is how you get to it if you have an iPhone. So go to your settings, go to camera, turn on grid, and then you'll go into your camera app and you can see that the grid is now on there. So this will be easy for you to line things up with a table. This here I lined up with my windowsill. So super easy way to do that. And then you can just go ahead, if you don't want it on in there anymore. I know I don't like it just because I have experience with taking photos more parallel now. So I don't need that grid, but you can just go back into your settings and turn it off. Cinematic video. This is a really great one as well. I know the iPhone has it. Again, not sure if the other phones do. This feature will smart focus on your objects. It's really cool when you're taking a video. It makes it look more cinematic. I love it. I love this feature. I love using it when I'm making videos. It makes them look so good. So here's an example of that. So you'll go to your camera app, go over to cinematic, and as you can see, you don't have to use your finger to tap on anything. You can just move your camera around and it will autofocus on things that it thinks looks good, right? So that's not me doing that. That is the phone doing that there. Pretty cool. Next is never zoom in. I yell at people when they do this. If they're taking a picture of me, I say, no, move a little bit closer because I know that it's going to make things look blurrier. So zooming in should be avoided at all costs, like I just said. It can diminish the quality of the photo, make things look blurry. Just move closer instead. So here's an example of this before and after photos here. So this is me zooming in. And you can see it's already a little bit more pixelated. And this is me getting a little bit closer and taking the photo that way. So this is me taking the photo close up, and that was me taking the photo zoomed in. So as you can see, it's a little bit less pixelated. It diminished the quality. That looks really good. That's the one I used when I zoomed in. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a difference there. Keep still. Hold your phone still. It's important. You're going to want to use two hands, or you can put your phone up on a solid platform, something like that. You can use a tripod. Those are some. Tripods are really good tools. I think you might want to invest in. You can get like one of those clickers as well, so you don't have to go over and do the timer or click the photo. Keeping still will, like I said earlier, ensure that your photos aren't as blurry, keeps things parallel, avoid them being uncentered, everything like that. On to my favorite part of the presentation, only because I love photography and I love editing things. So this is after you take the photo, not before. So I always like to tell people to avoid using filters because one, it diminishes the quality. It can diminish the quality of your photo, and also you want to make sure you're not making things look as if they're not, right? So here's an example of a photo I took in Florida, and I just used the editing tool to edit this. So I edited the contrast, the brightness, the sharpness, I believe I used on this too. And over here I used a filter. I didn't use a filter here on the left photo. I used a filter here on the right photo. So as you can see, I think this one looks better. I'm not sure about you. Maybe this one looks, less real. That's the whole point of it. This looks good still. Looks pretty cool, right? But it looks a lot less real than this one over here. And we want to make sure our products and our subjects, whatever we're taking photos of, look like they should. So here is an example of this. So this is me doing a contrast edit of a photo I took in the Bahamas of a boat. So it's never that great of an idea to use filters. Like I said, use it sparingly if you need to or want to. Editing the photo on your phone's camera app instead of another editing app can make the quality, a little bit better, remain there, as opposed to using it on another app. When you save the photo from that app, it can diminish the quality, and that's why I say that. Editing with contrast, brightness, highlight, shadows, etc. can emphasize the photo's features and lessen the chances of quality diminishment. So, for example, if I were to take a photo that was a little bit blurry on the edges, maybe it was because of the fog or whatnot. It wasn't because of you, because you didn't clean off that lens, but maybe there was fog in the camera. You could use the brightness and the contrast and the shadows to actually make it look a little bit better. I think this part is very fun, and you can use your creative instincts here. So there's no right or wrong way to do this, but I'm going to show you how I do it. For this photo in particular, every photo is different. Don't try and take the exact measurements of what I'm doing because it depends on what the photo is. This one's a little bit darker, and I wanted to make it, emphasize, maybe make this a little bit lighter, this a little bit lighter, maybe that a little bit darker. I'm not sure what I did, but let's see. So this is me on my camera's editing app. So I just take the photo, and what I do is I just do whatever I feel looks good. So let's see, and we'll do a before and after as well. I know I'm going a little bit fast, but that's how I edit. You might need to take a little bit more time to experiment with this before you go ahead and do that. But as you can see, I did not include any filters. I'm just using these editing tools here to make the photo look a little bit more enhanced and highlighting my subject. So as you can see, we're kind of using a lot of the different elements we already talked about here. So I have my subject in the middle of the camera. It's right in the middle. The boat is the subject, of course, right in the middle, pretty much in the middle. The horizon is looking good, looking parallel, and I didn't use a filter. Everything looks pretty clear, right? So all of those different elements were used here. Let me show you the before and after again, just because I was talking through it. So that's after, and this is before. As you can see, it's not a different photo. I didn't use a filter. And to be honest, this looked, in real life, it looked more like this than it did the photo. I know some of us can attest to this, that when you take a picture, you're like, that doesn't look like what it looked like in my head. So this can help with that a little bit. Prioritize lighting is our next area here. So you're going to want to try and use sun and natural light as much as you can. That being said, you're going to want to keep the sun directly off of a face or a product, because sometimes the sun can make things look way too bright, and that's not always something that you want, right? So a good time to shoot outside is during the day at noon when the sun is directly above, or another great time to shoot is also, or another great way or place to shoot is during the day when you're in the shade. So that will make the light a little bit more soft, and there's no sunlight or any direct light onto your product. So that makes a little bit more of a softer light and a good way to take photos of product. Like I said, natural light is best. Try and avoid the flash. I'm not sure if any of you already know this, but sometimes that can make a product or a subject just not look as it does. Can make the background of the photo look very dark and the subject to look way too light, for example. You're going to want to surround your product with natural light. This is a soft light. You can use a box light if you want. If you have smaller products, that is going to be a small investment, obviously, but those are really good things for products. Or I've used a box light, a light box for taking a photo of a milkshake once for someone's website, or a salad once, and they look really good because it was just white space, and you can do really cool editing things with that. So you could use this to take photos of things where nothing's in the background, and then you can cut out the image and use it on your website or things like that in very creative ways, on a flyer, anything that you might be able to think of. But if you don't, say you don't have the budget for that, you don't have a budget to get a light box, you can go and actually use some household items. I do this all the time. So you can actually use a white sheet and lamps at your house if you want. So get creative. You don't need to have a huge marketing budget to do any of these techniques here. Orientation of shooting. So these are some examples. This is what I was talking about earlier about the horizontal and vertical. So for horizontal, this creates more of a surrounding space, but might not be the best for photos or landscapes or images for a website. Vertical would be a better thing for social media or headshots, and I'll show you that here. Think about what you're going to take what you're taking a photo of, and also where you're going to put the photo. So if it's a headshot, do it vertical. If it's a group photo of your team, do it horizontal. If you're using photos on Instagram, try and use the 16:9 frame. I'll explain what that is a little bit further down in the presentation. And when you're posting these here, make sure photos on your social media, make sure that you are not cropping out anything important there. So I'm going to show you what that means as well. So here's an example of me. This is me taking a photo in a product of my sweatshirt here. So if I were to crop it horizontally, it doesn't look as good as if I had it vertically, right? So that's just an example of that there. And here's an example of another one of my sisters holding out a leaf. So this looks good horizontally because there's more space on the outside. But if I were to do it vertically, it looks, it cuts out that really cool element of the trees in the background. Those are just some examples there. Hopefully you get the gist. So continuing on there, so avoid improperly cropping a photo when posting to social media. That's what I mentioned a little bit earlier. This can sometimes go unnoticed. It's important elements of the photo can be left out. Crop to 16:9 stories for your Instagram or Reels. I think this is on Facebook as well. So here are some examples. This is just my photography page with my photos. So this is my panoramic photo. I'm showing you how posting this photo is cropping out half of the photo. So you want to make sure that you're not cropping out any of the elements of your photo when you're going to post. Here's another example. I believe this one's of a story. So this is how you take a photo and you put it on your story. At least for Instagram, this is Instagram. So you're going to want to make sure that the photo looks good, right? You don't want to crop my sister. You don't want to crop my sister out of the photo. So you want to make sure the subject is right in the middle of the photo. And as you can see, it's cropped 16. This is what I meant by 16 by 9. 16 by 9. I'll go back a little bit. When I first put this on here, you can see that the photo didn't fit the screen all the way. See up here? So what you want to do is make sure that doesn't look like that. You want to make sure it's cropped to 16.9. And obviously make sure she's in the photo or your subject is in the photo there. Moving on, be aware of your surroundings. Try to remove or avoid unwanted items from the shot. This can be distracting from the subject. If shooting outside, wait for pedestrians to pass before shooting. It's easy to remove what you can in real life rather than editing it in Photoshop, editing things out. That can take forever. Also, you're going to need a software to do that, right? And I know I don't have that great of skills to Photoshop. I try really hard to make the photo I'm taking what it is, and all I have to do is edit the contrast, right? So I don't like using Photoshop, and it can be really hard. So try and avoid that by taking unwanted items out of photos or just waiting for a pedestrian to pass. Determining your relevance. I touched on this a little bit earlier, right? So relevance is crucial. So only take pictures of things and publish photos that are relevant to your business. This is the whole point, right? To be taking those photos for your business, right? So, for example, if you're a dog treat manufacturer, avoid taking unrelated photos like of a palm tree or a rainbow and then posting that on your social media or your website. If there's no relevance or it makes no sense, don't even take the picture, right, for your business. This is going to confuse your customers, your audience. Avoid posting those. Also, another thing to note, I know this isn't really about photography, but you're going to want to make sure you're keeping your personal life and your business separate. So this kind of draws into social media, and that's why I mentioned it here. You don't want to post something personal on your business if it's not related to your business at all. So kind of coming to the end of the presentation, purchasing additional equipment might be necessary or something you might want to do if you do have a little bit of a marketing budget. So a tripod and a Bluetooth remote clicker can be a really great thing for you to have and to use as a tool. This will help with the still video or photo, as hands can be shaky sometimes, and you can even use this for solo headshots. A light box, what I talked a little bit about earlier. This is great to be used for product shots, and it's easy to edit these photos later on down the road because there's nothing in the background. Another great thing, you can use surrounding lights. So there are lights that you can buy. They create soft lighting for the products, and this can make sure you have the best lighting for a product or a subject or whatever it may be you're taking photos of. Another thing I did want to mention was exporting correctly. So photos can lose resolution after multiple attempts to edit or export. The more attempts you do to send a photo across different platforms, it becomes more pixelated that way. So a way to avoid this is to upload it one time to a cloud or a Google Drive or something like that. So say, for example, I were to take a photo on my photo app, on my phone, my camera app on my phone. And then I take that photo and I take it to a third-party app and edit it, do some crazy things to it, whatever there, and then I download it, save it back to my camera roll, and then I send it in a text or I send it in an email, and then I download it from the email and then send it to my friend. Every time you send it, it's going to diminish the quality of that photo. So you want to think of a way that you can keep the quality of the image as best as you can. So a good way to do this is to upload it directly to a cloud or a drive. So that way, for example, I use Google Drive. So I create folders, sorry, in my Google Drive and name them. And then I'll just export my photos directly to my Google Drive from my phone. So I have the Google Drive app on my phone. So that way, if I ever need the photo, I can just go onto my Google Drive and I can download it from there, save it from there to my camera roll, edit it, and then use it wherever I want to use it instead of sending it to a million different places. You can also adjust the resolution on your camera app as well. Let me restart this before you take a photo. So that's really interesting. Oh, sorry about that. So here is an example of that. So on the iPhone, you go to your settings, scroll down all the way to your camera, and then you can go ahead and change the different resolutions of your videos. So what that means is going to be better quality based on what you pick there. So that's really interesting. Shooting efficiently. So I kind of did this in order. Shoot, edit, plan, and then organize. So take a day to shoot your content. I always like to tell my clients that it can be very overwhelming when you're trying to, get content for social media, website, marketing, whatever it may be. But if you take one day to go out and, get your photos, get everything all in a batch, then use the next day to edit all of the photos, carve out some time to do this, maybe on a Sunday night, I'm not sure. And then plan in a content calendar if you're using social media. That's a really great thing. Or just plan where you're going to use those photos and organize it. That's the next step. Create your files, or so you can create it. These are just title examples, products, people, dates, etc. To easily find your photos, because I know I take a lot of photos just because I love to take photos. So when I'm going through my camera app that I did not download to my Google Drive, I sometimes can get frustrated when I'm trying to find a photo. So eliminating that is a really great thing to do. And again, you can use a cloud-based drive there. And ta-da! That is it for today. Now you're a professional photographer. Hopefully you learned a little bit something today that you can take in using your cell phone to take some pretty high quality photos and videos for your business now. Thank you for attending our seminar, and I am looking forward to maybe doing another one of these in the future. Thanks.